adjusting your glasses. Well, I would tell I have to, I can't see. But this migration was under the leadership of W.R. Hill and the Reverend M.M. Bell. The settlement in Nicodemus, Kansas, which is the oldest African-American town west of the Mississippi River, settled in 1877. Some of you may have visited this location during the annual celebration, which is sometimes held sometime in August. Interestingly, though, the name Nicodemus is not derived from the biblical Nicodemus, but from a legendary slave who was said to have arrived in America aboard the second slave ship and later purchased his freedom. There are people who live here. I know the Buford family. Some of you may know Carolyn and Leota. There are families, some of those who settled at Nicodemus. The Garland family, they're descendants from the Garland family. John Garland Park, on Fifth Street, they were Nicodemus. Mr. Garland and his family moved back here along with the Bufords. At the same time that Pap Singleton was establishing colonies, a man named Henry Adams was doing the same thing in Louisiana. He was born a slave but escaped and joined the Union Army. Many of the persons that he worked with came up the Mississippi River from Louisiana. They came up the Mississippi River over to the Missouri River from Louisiana by steamboat. Wyandotte City was the first stop inside the Kansas border. Wyandotte City, Kansas City, Kansas was all the same. Wyandotte City, Kansas City, Armadale, Riverview. These were all little towns, but Wyandotte was the largest. It was larger than Kansas City, Kansas. Want to know about Kansas City history and find out how the name changed from Wyandotte City to Kansas City, Kansas. What happened? Why did that happen? That's a whole another story about the history of Wyandotte County, which we really should know more about. And on March 23rd, 1879, the steamboat Fannie Lewis disembarked, the first of the exodusters from Louisiana. Within the next 2 weeks, nearly 1,000 more exodusters arrived in Wyandotte City. This caused a crisis for the city because very few of the exodusters had money or supplies. The mayor enlisted the churches to help with food and shelter. The exodusters continued for about a year and a half. During this time, at least 40,000 people arrived in Wyandotte City. They didn't all stay here, as you could imagine. Many of them went west, went south. Many of them stopped in Topeka. Matter of fact, I'm sure that y'all heard this or know this. In Topeka, there's a park called Tennessee Town. Many settled there, many went west. But that became a crisis here in Kansas City, Kansas because of the exodus. And keep in mind, this happened right in the city where you live. Aboard that steamboat was Reverend George McNeil, who was called to be the pastor of Pleasant Green Baptist Church. Amen. He was known as a man of great integrity and had considerable influence with city officials and the business community. He died in 1933. I'm sure Bob may not remember him, but you remember his wife, Miss Ruby McNeil, who lived on 3rd Street. Some of you may remember Miss Ruby McNeil. Some of you may remember, thank you, some of you may have heard the story. In 1904, when the racial incident that occurred when the young black man who was not a student City High School. At that time, everybody went to the same high school, which was located at 9th in Minnesota. This young black man shot and killed a young white student who was a member of that school. The county erupted. Matter of fact, the day after, they closed the school down. The school board decided that's the end of the school year. This is April 1904. That's the end of the school year. So they reopened. I don't want to go too much into that because it's some story, the story by itself. But because of this incident, and people were angry at this young man, and so a mob ensued. People came from, they were going to go to the jail, which at that time was located at 7th and State, and pull him out and lynch him. But Reverend McNeil, George McNeil, enlisted support of men of the 23rd Volunteer Infantry who had fought in the Spanish-American War, and many of them were from Kansas City, Kansas. I've got their whole story. The house I live in, Bishop John Andrew Gray was a member of that. If you drive up Washington Boulevard, you see the Singletary Apartments. He was a part of that. So he enlisted the support of those men who still had their Springfield rifles. Reverend McNeil assembled them in front of the jail and said, he drew a line in the sand. And said that anybody who crosses this line tonight will wind up in hell in the morning. That ended that threat. Another group of exodus from Louisiana arrived in Wyandotte aboard the steamboat named Grand Tower. The majority of the persons on that boat were members of a church that originated before the Civil War in Louisiana, before it ended. There were people on a plantation owned by Mr. Pollard formed a congregation and called it the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church. This church evolves into what is now known as the Walnut Boulevard Baptist Church. All these things that happen right here in our community. This is a history that we must pass on to our children. I hear all the time, I'm saying, our children don't know our history. I'm saying, you don't know it either. I expect them to know through osmosis. Matter of fact, most of you don't know as much as your children. Kansas became a destination for many African Americans, probably because of the theme of the name Free Kansas and John Brown. Many progressive African Americans came and opened businesses, which included many physicians and attorneys. In the National Negro Almanac and Yearbook, published in 1911, which I have a copy of, they list several things. It said, of the prominent men of the world history. Two of them are from Kansas City, Kansas. Of the best Negro authors of Negro descent in the world, two were from Kansas City, Kansas. All had resided here. The important inventions purchased by a patent by Negroes, two was from Kansas City, Kansas. One was the elevator, right here from Kansas City, Kansas. And Negroes reputed to be worth more than $50,000, which would be equivalent of at least $1 million today. Three were from Kansas City, Kansas. One, I'm sure you've heard the name Junius Groves, out in Evansville, the Potato King. Yeah. You've heard in Missouri, the Groves family, very active in politics up there, Mary Groves, Groves, Bland. Right. And here again, Nat Singletary. How many times have you passed the two apartment buildings on the corner of 12th and Washington Boulevard and say Singletary apartment? worth more than $1 million. The history of African American Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County is one of the finest and richest in America. I have been studying, teaching, and presenting African American history for the past 40 years. I give a lot of credit to two persons. First to my mother and father. But persons who started me down this road was Mr. Orrin Murray, who was a member of First Day Church. Mr. H.W. Soin, who knew a lot of the persons, and Mr. Ernest Gate. In the past 10 years, I've seen a drastic, rapid decline in the interest of African American history in Kansas City, Kansas. Why? It is my intention to try and start a Black History Study group. There was one in Kansas City, Kansas, but shut down about 10 years ago because of lack of interest. There's one in Missouri which I participate in. But we need one over here because the history over here is far richer than the history in Kansas City, Missouri. I don't know what vehicle I will use to start the group, and I'm open to suggestions. I'm forever mindful of the statement that I made about, it was made by Dr. Woodson, in that we've been maybe subject to extermination. Our history is too rich to not know. As we stated, how do our children know if we don't know? We must tell our own story. We've got to not let people define who we are and tell our story. Much interest now about the Underground Railroad, and rightfully so, it should be declared a national history. But what about the other stuff? How really does this really affect you personally? How does it really affect African Americans? The things that were accomplished under the most adverse conditions probably ever known in the history of the world. We've got to decide. We need to talk about persons of history from this area. And we need to define, not let other people define who our heroes are. We need to define, as I said, Leon Brady and Bob Milan Sr. And Quindara Ruins, we talk about Western University. And I'm up here talking because I'm talking to myself, but I didn't know years ago, Mr. Murray is the one who sparked my interest. During we had Black History Week, he would get up in the middle of service and walk down the front and start talking. And I remember as a teenager saying, why don't they sit him down? And they would go sit him down. But he was determined that we would know. And that sparked my interest in Western University. How many of us have heard of John Waller? I'm not saying you should know, because I didn't know. But something sparked my interest that I know I need to know. John Waller, C.H.J. Taylor, S.H. Thompson Sr. Yeah. I.F. Bradley Sr. Bishop William T. Vernon. These are just a few of persons that we should remember. I would like to offer some suggestions to you this morning. In 1979, the men's organization at First Day Church taped all the men over 70. And I have to laugh at that time because I wasn't over 70, and when I was one of the two people doing the tape, we taped all of the men over 70 in that church. Now what a great thing that was. Go back now and reflect. We put the tapes on CDs and we give them to the families, particularly after their loved one dies. I see Miss Usher back there laughing. Y'all don't know who Miss Usher is. You know who she is. put it just for the hand over eyes. Thank you, Miss Usher. You know what I'm talking about. That's the first day of your member. I would suggest that if you haven't already done this in your church, Pastor Myler, take whoever you want. But take men and women. This is Women's History Month. There are women in this church probably over 70 years old. They've lived that long, they've got a story to tell. Take them and video them. In your own family. Take the elder members of your family. I ain't gonna put you on the spot, Bob, by asking, have you taped your dad?
No, I ain't taped him. I got some pictures. I gotta tape him.
Tape him.
I gotta tape him.
20, 25 years from now, even though nobody said, if I could hear my dad's voice one more time. There used to be a song that was saying, if I could hear my mother's voice one more time. Fortunately, we taped our parents years ago. Tape them so you can hear their voice and hear what they have to say. You will discover some things that you never knew about your dad. If you tape him and video him. We stated this Thursday, we're honoring this man to be 100 years old. Grew up in Mississippi. Was drafted in World War II. Served in Germany. Clifford and I videoed him for an hour and 6 minutes. He was a member of the Red Ball Express. Anybody know what the Red Ball Express was? I asked him, when he said, I was in Belgium, I said, well, you remember the Red Ball Express? He said, yeah. That was a group that saved John Patton. Because Patton was advancing. They needed the gasoline and supplies for those tanks. And those truck drivers